health, well-being, disease, treatment of diseases, medicinal plants, anatomy, number of subjects like this, mundane subjects. These are discussed in the Atharva Veda. But many of those, Atharva Veda, the way diseases were also always regarded as punishments awarded by gods who had been offended by human transgressions. So these punishments, if we had to treat a disease, always there had to be hymns to please that offended god, followed by medicinal preparations. Now the classic, for example, in jaundice, all these hymns are in the form of invocations. So in the treatment of jaundice, the patient would be taken, I have taken a specific example, a patient is taken to a bishak, who was a physician in those days, and he would chant a hymn, and that hymn is in the Atharva Veda. But if you want to know the ritual which accompanied it, you have to read the Kaushika Sutra, which is a part of Atharva Veda. And there you will find the patient is lying on a cot, and at one end, the foot of the bed, there is a cage with 3 yellow birds. At the head, there is a cow with almost a reddish-brown color. And the chant really is a prayer to transfer this yellow color from the patient, which is an unnatural color in a human being, from him to the natural place, that's the yellow birds. And the reddish-brown color, and remember, this was composed in the northwest of India. The reddish-brown color, that is being transferred from the cow to the patient. That is the... So it was essentially a faith-based, with Charaka's words, Deva Vipasraya. Medicine was faith-based in Atharva Vedic time. But the Atharva Veda also contains number of, like for example, anatomy of the body. There is a wonderful sutra, the title is The Wonderful Structure of Man. And there all the organs are mentioned, liver, spleen. How did they know all this? That's a mystery. But anyway, all these organs are mentioned, listed there. Similarly, medicinal plants. There are some 100 medicinal plants. All of them are in use today, insofar as they can be identified in Ayurveda. So like that, there is a continuity. When you come to the Ayurvedic medicine, which existed since then continuously, but there is one singular incident, if I may use that word. If you read Charaka, who says you should be reverential to Atharva Veda if you want to practice Ayurveda, he says that. But in the practice of medicine, he completely deviates from Atharva Veda. Whereas Atharva Veda, the hymns are there, like this jaundice, for example, which I gave. If you look at Charaka's description of jaundice, it is entirely different. First century. There he says these are the causes: incompatible food, wrong lifestyle, etc., etc. That is what produces jaundice. And the treatment of jaundice, there is some rest, then there is panchakarma, there are various types of medicinal formulations. He describes different types of jaundice for recognition, including what we call nowadays obstructive jaundice. That is also mentioned. So it is a very accurate clinical description, acceptable even today. There is no place for hymns or rituals in Charaka's description of jaundice. And this is true for many other diseases. How did this change come? From the faith-based medicine of Veda, which Charaka reveres, you suddenly come to Charaka's medicine, which has no place for hymns or rituals. How did this happen? And this riddle, the solution is Buddhism. Because we had 1,000 years of Buddhism in between, and Buddhists never accepted the authority of Vedas. So rituals and hymns, they all went out of medicine. And Buddhists were the great leaders of medical practice. In fact, Charaka's text, he says at the end of every chapter, Agnivesha Tantra Puna Samskrite. There was an earlier book, Agnivesha Tantra, which existed in Buddhist time, which unfortunately is lost. We know it existed, because Charaka Samhita you cannot really understand unless you read the commentary of Chakrapani. Ayurveda Deepika. Chakrapani Datta was from Bengal. He lived in the 10th century. And he writes there, he had access to this Agnivesha Tantra. He quotes from that. So the book existed, but we have lost it. Now that was the standard text of medicine in Buddhist times. We unfortunately don't have it. So all that we can think of the practice of medicine in the Buddhist 1,000 years, They are essentially based on information we get from religious texts of Buddhism. Questions of King Milinda Panhu, or Vishuddhimagga, written by Ashokosha, Buddhagosha. So like that series of books, Mahavaka, many of these Buddhist texts, they are essentially religious texts, philosophic texts, but there are a number of incidental references to medicine, of illness. From that itself you understand Buddha's dialogue. Again you find references to medicine, about hygiene, about treatment of diseases, medicinal preparations, even surgery. Many of these are mentioned in Buddhist texts. So there was a vigorous practice of medicine, and many of the concepts we have in Ayurveda today, including Panchakarma, including the triad, treating patients, all these are mentioned in the Buddhist texts, which are not medical texts incidentally. And also, there is a great figure, a dominant figure of Jivaka, who was Buddha's physician, a very great surgeon. There is a great deal of information about Jivaka as a leader of surgery, probably a little later than Sushruta, but he was a very great leader, and he was a graduate of Takshashila University. All these are mentioned, and he was also in Buddhist time. And the last of the great three in Ayurveda, Vakpada, he was a self-proclaimed Buddhist. So that was a long phase of traditional medicine in India, from Atharva Veda, the transition to Ayurveda. So Ayurveda, which we see today, it really started with the systematization of Charaka in the 1st century. And this was followed by the redaction of Sushruta Samhita. Sushruta he much earlier than Charaka. He was based in Banaras. Charaka lived somewhere in the Kashmir, Punjab area, whereas Sushruta was based in Banaras. On that everybody is agreed. But Sushruta lived